Ladies and gentlemen, let us all rise for the arrival of the Honorable Senate President and the Senators of the Republic of the Philippines.
Lisa, over here. The 55th session of the Senate and the first regular session of the 18th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Risa Hontiveros will lead the chamber in prayer.
Lord, today we pray to you through the prayers of World Vision for women and children. Dear Lord, touch the lives of girls even before they are born. Let them be born healthy and whole, and let their parents love and cherish them as much as you do. Lord, may you fulfill many girls' longing for wisdom and a better life. Bless them with a quality education, school supplies, and a family that supports their scholastic goals. Lord God, motivate families to turn away from damaging practices and protect their female children from all forms of harm. Jesus, show your compassion to the multitudes of girls and women who endure the damaging physical and relational effects of child marriage. Holy Spirit, reveal alternatives to parents or change the hearts of those who consider giving up their daughters for social status or financial gain. Heavenly Father, you are good. You delight in us when we honor you in our work. Bring opportunities for employment or business that fulfills parents' desire to make life better for their children. Thank you for organizations that provide small business loans to women. Bless these ventures so their families can live healthier, more secure lives. And dear Lord, as millions of women and girls continue to walk every day to collect water, please walk beside them and keep them from harm. Bless the work of organizations that provide clean water so more women and girls can leave this task behind to lead more productive and meaningful lives. Finally, Jesus, we come to you humbled by the struggles many girls face every day. Restore them to trusting relationships and self-confidence. Inspire leaders to create policies that address the causes of sexual exploitation and forced labor against children like Karina and women like Ivy. We thank you, Lord. Amen.
Amen. The Senate choir will lead us in the singing of the Philippine National Anthem. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 22 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, before we take up other official business, we'd like to recognize in the gallery today, we have several colleagues and public servants from the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region and from the province of Sultan Kudarat. We have with us Congresswoman by Princess Rihan Mangudadatu Sakaluran, who is with us here today, and also Mayor of Lutayan, Sultan Kudarat, Prince Raden Sakaluran. We also have with us Governor Ismail Sali of Tawi-Tawi is with us today, as well as board members Attorney Jet Lim and board member Madi Tidal, and Attorney Dayan Baginda and ABC Sam Piana, Mr. President. Visitors
Welcome.
from Mindanao.
We would like to welcome all our guests to the Senate. Thank you very much. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the readings of the Journal of the 54th Session, Wednesday, February 12, 2020, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Chair hears none. The journal is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary will proceed with reference of business.
Reference of business. Bills on first reading. Senate number 1335 entitled An Act Providing for the Financial Consumer Protection Act, introduced by Senator Revilla Jr.
Referred to the committees on banks, national institutions and currencies, trade, commerce, and entrepreneurship.
Senate number 1336, an act mandating banking institutions to strengthen the financing system for agriculture, fisheries, and rural development in the Philippines, introduced by Senator Revilla Jr.
Referred to the committees on agriculture and banks.
Senate number 1337, an act establishing the rules and policies on the domestic administrative adoption proceeding of Filipino and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Revilla Jr.
Referred to the committees on women and social justice and finance.
Senate number 1338, an act punishing any person who shall promote, facilitate, induce another to engage in the act of prostitution, and punishing any person who shall derive money or profit from prostitution, providing penalties therefore and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Binay.
Referred to the committees on women and justice.
Senate number 1339, an act exempting farmer cooperatives and associations engaged in the trade of organic fertilizers from payment of registration, licensing fees, and administrative charges, granting amnesty for previous violations of Presidential Decree 1144 and amending for the purpose Presidential Decree 1144, introduced by Senator Binay.
Referred to the committees on agriculture, cooperatives, and finance.
Senate number 1340, an act assisting young athletes by providing programs and incentives for their development, introduced by Senator Binay.
To the Committee on Sports and Government Corporations.
Resolutions. PS Resolution number 323, resolution directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry aid of legislation into the plans of the government's economic team to handle, offset, and mitigate the economic effects of the abrogation of the Visiting Forces Agreement with the United States of America, introduced by Senator Marcos.
Referred to Committee on Economic Affairs.
PS Resolution number 324, resolution expressing the sense of the Senate to join the community of member states of the United Nations in the celebration of International Women's Day 2020, introduced by Senator Binay.
To the Committee on Rules.
Committee reports. Committee report number 46, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Public Services and Local Government on Senate number 1341 with Senators Recto, Poe, Marcos, Angara, Villanueva, Revilla Jr., and Tolentino, authors thereof, entitled An Act Allowing and Regulating the Use of Motorcycles as Public Utility Vehicles, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 4136, otherwise known as the Land Transportation and Traffic Code, and for other purposes, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate numbers 50, 128, 409, 1025, and 1262, sponsor Senator Poe.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee Report Number 47, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, Basic Education, Arts and Culture, Finance, and Ways and Means on Senate Number 1342 with Senators Villar, Binay, Pangilinan, Lapid, Poe, and Revilla Jr. as authors thereof, entitled An Act Addressing Food Security Concerns Through Integrating Instructional Gardens in Primary and Secondary School Curricula and Promoting the Use of Urban Agriculture and for Other Purposes, recommending its approval on substitution of Senate Numbers 147, 257, 280, 587, and 1264, sponsor Senator Villar.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee Report Number 48, submitted by the Committee on Public Information and Mass Media on Senate Number 670, introduced by Senator Revilla Jr., entitled An Act Declaring August 30 of every year as National Press Freedom Day, recommending its approval without amendment, sponsor Senator Revilla Jr.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I'm just getting my senior moments here, and I'm not a senior citizen yet. I just want to confirm with the staff that we approved on second reading the good manners and right conduct last Wednesday? Last Tuesday? So tapos na rin yung amendment mo?
The clean copies were distributed as far as the...
Okay, Mr. President, yeah, I thought we were still in the period of amendments. Mr. President, I move that we approve on third reading Senate Bill number 1224, Mr. President. Ask Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure and conduct a roll call vote for the third reading approval.
An act institutionalizing comprehensive values education in the K-12 curriculum as a core subject, including good manners and right conduct, and for other purposes. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 23 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention, Senate Bill 1224 is approved on third reading. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1240. This is the... Before we take up this measure, Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Joel
Yes,
Villanueva.
Mr. President, I was supposed
Senator
to
Villanueva.
just give a short speech on the passage of the third reading of Senate Bill number 1224, or the Comprehensive Values Education Bill. But may I just be allowed to just insert this for the record, Mr. President?
All right, so inserted into the records the voting explanation of, the explanation of vote of Senator Joel Villanueva.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate
The best Joel.
it. Thank you again, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1240. This is under Committee Report number 31. This is yung Walang Kamatayang Bamboo Industry Development Act Bill na hopefully today, mabubuhay na po siya.
All right.
Hopefully today.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the resilient bamboo bill is in order.
We recognize Senator Coco Pimentel to sponsor the measure and to propose amendments. I believe the good minority floor leader has proposed.
So therefore, the parliamentary status of the measure is
We're
that
in the
we're still
period-
in the period of individual amendments, so we recognize the sponsor, Committee on Trade, Chairman, Senator Coco Pimentel III, and to continue the period of amendments is the minority leader, Senator Frank Drilon.
Mr. President,
Yes.
with the indulgence of the minority leader, when we suspended consideration of this measure, there was a pending question from Senator Recto about the budget for the the bamboo industry. We are ready to respond to the question of Senator Recto, Mr. President.
Will you refresh the hall on, or the chamber on the question of Senator Recto?
Senator Recto asked for the total budget being given to the bamboo industry or to the development of bamboo.
All right.
So for 2020, this is the information that we have gathered. sourced from different agencies, the total budget for dedicated for bamboo is around 598 million pesos. The details are as follows. 10 million from the DTI for the Bamboo Industry Development Project, 1.2 million from the Shared Services Facilities, 276 million from the National Greening Program, 31.79 million from the support to the Harmonized National S&T Agenda of the Department of Science and Technology, 1.5 million from the PCARRD, 2.25 million from the FPRDI, 1.9 million from the TAPI Venture Capital under the Department of Science and Technology, 173.56 million pesos from the DOST Set-Up Program, and then the bill precisely appropriates also 100 million for this purpose. So that's our response to the question of Senator Recto, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right. So if Senator Recto is satisfied, we now recognize the Minority Leader, Senator Frank Drilon, for the continuing interpellation, amendments, I should say. And for the record, we will be using the clean copy as of February 10, 2020.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Can we have a little more silence in the hall, please?
Applicable yan dito sa clean copy na
Thank you. Senator Drilon, you may proceed.
Yes, Mr. President. Will the gentleman sponsor yield the floor to proposed amendments from this representation?
Yes, Mr. President, gladly. Mr. President.
Yes. On page 2, lines 17 to 18, delete the phrase "it shall contain" and replace with the phrase "refers to the." We submit, Mr.
What does the sponsor say?
It is more, just,
So
it's more a matter of style, Mr. President.
Yes, we include the word A, Mr. President. It shall contain A, so...
No, we delete the phrase "it shall contain" and replace the same with "refers to the."
Perhaps to,
Yeah, I think-
just an editorial suggestion, remove the A. After
Yes.
contain.
I'm sorry, yes. Remove the A. Yes.
And would you like to remove the period after products or?
Actually, Mr. President, this is, we will transpose the last sentence on lines 18 to 19, transpose it to line 14 as a matter of better construction, Mr. President.
Okay.
All right. After roadmap and the hyphen.
Yes. So if I may proceed, Mr. President,
What does the sponsor say?
we propose to delete "it shall contain A" and replace the same with "refers to the." And then if I may complete so that
Yes.
it will be understood,
Akyat siya.
and then,
Insert it in line 14 after roadmap.
yes, insert it in line 14, insert it in line 14, Mr. President, after the title.
All right.
We accept, Mr. President, but we suggest that we also add the word "and." So, refers to the comprehensive national industrial strategy for the Philippine bamboo industry and shall provide, etc. Is that?
No problem with that, Mr. President.
All right.
We accept,
Yes,
Mr.
yes,
President.
yes.
All right. Accepted, subject to style. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Okay. On page 3, after line 25, I'm sorry, after line 25, after section 5, delete the, it should just read the Philippine Bamboo Industry Development Council. Matter of style,
Matter of style, removing the.
yes.
What does the sponsor say?
I have, ano, article?
Well, it's a matter of style, depends upon you.
Yes.
So, line 25, page 3.
Yes,
So the sentence becomes Philippine.
Bamboo
Yes,
Industry Development
yes.
Council, it's the title of the
Is that
Just
the
the
section.
title?
title.
Of course, yes,
It will
Mr.
become the
President.
same.
we accept, Mr.
Accepted. No, hearing no objection, adopted.
On line 28, after the word DTI, insert the phrase, or his/her duly appointed representative.
Yes, Mr. President, that's correct, for consistency's sake. We agree, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Again, on line 30, insert a comma between representative and us.
Between representative and us.
Representative, comma, us.
Subject to style.
Yes, just
Yeah,
a
we
style.
accept, Mr. President.
Agreed. Accepted. Adopted.
On the same line, capitalize the word co-chair.
We agree, Mr. President.
Hearing no objection, adopted.
On page 4, line 4, insert a period after agriculture.
Okay, and then for what purpose, Mr. President?
Okay, let me read the rest of the proposed amendment on page 4, starting with line 4. We propose to place a period after agriculture, and then the following amendment. They will be appointed by the Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry from the list of nominees submitted by the different organizations and associations. Let me repeat that, Mr. President. Let me read the whole proposed sentence, section 5. Philippine Bamboo Industry Development Council. The Philippine Bamboo Industry Development Council is hereby created, period. It shall be composed of the following: the Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry, DTI, or her duly authorized representative as chair. Secretary, letter B, Secretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, DNR, or her duly appointed representative as co-chair. Letter C, Department of Agriculture, DA, or her duly appointed representative. Letter D, Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology, or her duly appointed representative. Letter E, 3 representatives from the private sector and the non-government organizations involved in the bamboo industry and agriculture. They will be appointed by the DTI Secretary from the list of at least 6 nominees submitted by the different organizations and associations. They shall have a term of 3 years and may be reappointed once. The council shall meet quarterly and may hold special meetings whenever the need arises to consider urgent matters upon the call of the chairman or any of its council members. The council shall administratively be attached to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources for the first 3 years from the effectivity of this act, period. Thereafter shall be and thereafter shall be attached to the Department of Trade and Industry. The most substantive amendment here, Mr. President, is that instead of being presidential appointees, we propose that the representatives from the private sector be appointed by the Department of Trade and Industry from the list submitted by the different organizations and associations. The reason, Mr. President, is our experience as executive secretary. Today, if you ask how many are presidential appointees, there will be thousands upon thousands. And I do not see any reason, any really rationale for this being appointed by the president. They can be appointed by the DTI secretary and from the list of at least 6 nominees submitted by the different organizations. We're just making them appointees of the secretary rather than the president, only for expediency, Mr. President.
And if I'm not mistaken, even up to now, there are still hundreds of vacant positions that the president is not appointed.
That's correct, sir, because it is, you know, our various laws that we passed inevitably would make the appointees presidential appointees. I was executive secretary once, Mr. President. I can attest to the fact that there are thousands of appointees that the president is obliged to appoint under the laws, and the president doesn't even know them. It's just the recommendation of the cabinet secretary. And because of this volume, the work is being delayed unnecessarily. That is our submission, Mr. President, that instead of being presidential appointees, that the 3 representatives be appointed by the DTI secretary from a list of nominees submitted by the different sectors, just to expedite the appointment.
All right, what does the sponsor say?
Yeah, to lighten the load of the office of the president, we agree, Mr.
All right.
We accept with the amendment, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
Okay.
Excuse me, Minority Leader, can we, just a styling on same section, Section 5? Because I heard the Minority Leader use the word first authorized, and then we have the word appointed in the next line, so maybe we can...
Appointed, Mr. President, I'm sorry.
Appointed, okay. So
They will be appointed
Yes,
by the Secretary of etc.
yes.
All right.
no, even when he read the paragraph A, Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry, or his or her duly authorized representative, that was the reading, so...
Yes.
Appointed.
Styling, we
Authorized.
can choose authorized, or we can choose appointed, so...
I leave it to the
So,
chair.
may I move, Mr. President, that we change the word appointed there as far as A, B, C, D are concerned to authorized. So it becomes the duly authorized representative.
Yes,
All right.
Mr.
That's my motion, Mr.
Yes,
Mr.
we
President.
All
accept.
right. Any objection? Hearing none. The motion is approved. Replace appointed with authorized on those 4 subsections.
On page 4, Mr. President, between lines 28 and 29.
Okay.
On page 4, between lines 28 and 29, insert a new section E to read as follows: regulate the export of bamboo poles. This power is this is a form of incentive. It is found in the incentive portion, but actually this is a power to regulate. It is not an incentive, Mr. President. So a matter of style, we place it under letter E of Section 6.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
On page 5, line 1, we just, again, matter of style, delete the phrase, "the council shall continue to," and start the sentence with "provide." Line 1, delete the
Yes.
phrase, "the council shall continue to."
We accept, Mr. President.
So the appropriate re-lettering should be done, Mr. President.
And also the re-lettering. Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
On page 5, line 6, matter of style, delete BIDC, parenthesis.
BIDC.
Yeah.
So no more acronym, Mr. President. We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Adopted.
And as an omnibus amendment, all reference to BIDC should be made center. Instead of BIDC, we replace it with center. all references to BIDC.
We accept, Mr. President.
Referred to as the center. All right, any objection?
In case there are any more...
In case
yes,
there
yes.
are any BIDCs in the rest of the bill. Omnibus motion. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 6,
Pero after this,
on page 6,
sinabi after. Siguro din yung after this.
a matter of style, just delete on line 21 the word "the."
In the
In
title.
the title, sir.
In the title, yes.
Yes, sir, we accept.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Again, a matter of style, delete the phrase "on a permanent capacity" on line 22 on page 6.
We accept, Mr. President. Shall be appointed.
Or on a permanent capacity.
Yes, on a permanent capacity.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
And then on line 23, instead of the DTI secretary, delete DTI secretary and insert the word council.
By the council. All right, any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
So wait, Mr. President, so we are now changing the rule that the nominees will be submitted by the council. That's the amendment, Mr.
The
President.
president shall appoint from a list of nominees submitted by the council.
Yes, by the
Yes,
council.
this is particularly for executive director,
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
no, not the other nominees. No.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On the same section, same paragraph, Mr. President, can I?
Yes,
With the
please.
indulgence of the minority leader.
Yes.
Can we add two sentences after the word development?
What line,
On
sir?
line 26.
Page 6, line 26.
Line 26.
Okay. The amendment is as follows. He/she shall serve for a period of 6 years, period. In case of vacancy, comma, the president shall appoint a replacement who shall serve only for the duration of the unexpired term, period.
Oh,
All right, any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Mr. President,
Senator Dillon.
on line 22, we propose that instead of the executive director being an appointee of the president, that he be an appointee of the DTI secretary upon the recommendation of the council, just to be consistent with our previous manifestation. So that on line 22, the executive director should be appointed by the DTI secretary from the list of nominees submitted by the council.
Under the same spirit to streamline the processes, we accept, Mr. President.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 7, matter of style, delete the abbreviation DENR.
Maybe here again the proposed
On
amendment.
page 7, line 3, matter of style, delete the initial DENR and the opening and closing parentheses.
We accept.
Objection, hearing none, adopted.
Consistency. ginagawa.
On lines 3 and 4, again, matter of style, we should delete the sentence, in addition to its mandate under the Bamboo Plantation Development Program, and we start the section with the.
Okay.
Of line 5.
Yes.
Yes.
Of line 6, sir.
Line 5, sir.
Line
Line
five.
5.
Line five,
I'm
yes.
sorry, line 5.
We accept, Mr. President.
All right, accepted. Hearing no objection, adopted.
On section 10, same page,
With the indulgence of the minority
Yes.
leader, in the same spirit, DTI on line 26, page 7. So do you want, does the minority leader also want to delete DTI
Yes, yes,
in the title of
Yes.
section 11?
yes.
I so move, Mr. President.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Yes, Mr. President. On the same page, line 20 and 21, delete the phrase such as the DA bar.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On line 26, delete the phrase on line 26. Huh? What?
23 muna po, yung the.
Saan? Sir. I'm sorry, on prior line, insert the word the between the words as and small on line 23. Between as and small, insert the. So as, such as the. Such,
Comma, Mr.
we delete the comma, sir.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Hearing no objection, adopted.
Ano nangyari dito?
On line 26, delete the phrase continue to. On line 27, delete the phrase cooperators such as, comma, but not limited to. On line 28, delete the word or and replace it with and. Still on line 28, remove the comma after associations. That's the amendment on the first three, on lines 26, 27, 28, and 29.
How will
Sorry? It will read now. The DTI shall provide NGOs, LGUs, cooperatives, people's organizations, and business associations shared service facilities for bamboo processing and manufacturing.
We accept, Mr. President.
accepted? Any objection? Adopted.
On line 29, we delete the word furthermore. We start the sentence with the.
Any objection?
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Adopted.
On line 30, the same page, delete the phrase under the DTI and the phrase continue to.
So it shall be shall.
Yes,
Provide,
shall
shall
provide
provide.
trainings, yes.
All right,
We
what
accept,
does-
Mr. President.
Accepted. Adopted.
On line 1, matter of style, delete the DA. Delete the comma after agriculture on the same line. On line 6, add S after non-government organization.
Huh?
Delete S, sir.
No, add S
Where?
on line 6, on the title on line 6, section 13. The title should be non-governmental organizations, plural, Mr. President.
My copy has an S, Mr. President.
Yes, mine also.
Okay, so I'm sorry about that. My copy does not have any anyway, so if it's already there,
It's there. It's carried.
we then go to line 10, section 14, local government units. We propose to delete on line 10, in cooperation, in line 11, with the DNR, DTI, and DOST, comma, and in consultation with the DA and National Commission on Indigenous People, NCIP, parenthesis, when necessary, comma.
Okay. We delete, Mr. President.
Delete that phrase so
Yes.
that it, and then continue on line 13, delete in the respective localities. So the proposed amendment, the proposed section 13 will now read as follows. Local government units shall regularly conduct surveys of existing bamboo stands, nurseries, and plantations, and shall strengthen the local bamboo industry by promoting and utilizing bamboo products in the respective localities. Matter of style, Mr. President.
All right.
Matter of style, and it's understood that it is in their locality, yes. Mr.
Yes.
President, we accept, Mr. President.
Accepted, adopted.
On line 19, this is the bamboo in public schools. We propose to insert on line 19, between the word shall and be, the phrase when practicable. We raised the issue in the period of interpretation and asked how long has this provision been here. The good sponsor responded for the last 10 years. We said originally it was 20%. How far has it been complied with? The answer is no, it has not been complied with. And it is because we can surmise that there is not enough supply, and therefore it is simply impossible to carry out this mandate. So we propose that instead of making it compulsory, that the making of desks and armchairs in all public and secondary schools nationwide be made of bamboo when practicable, meaning where there is available raw materials. That's all, Mr. President.
All right.
When there is available material.
Together with editorial amendment, comma, when practicable, comma,
Yes, yes, sir.
be made,
from
bamboo.
bamboo.
All right. What does the sponsor say?
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted, adopted.
On line 20, we propose to delete the phrase to investors on line 20 and on line 21 in plantation development and bamboo processing factories. We should not limit the incentive only to investors in bamboo plantation, but to all who are involved in the bamboo industry.
So the introductory sentence will read, the following incentive shall be provided.
Colon.
Yes. We accept, Mr. President.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On line 25, insert after before planters the word bamboo plantation owners is how it should read.
The word bamboo before plantation on
Yes,
letter B.
word bamboo before plantation, sir.
All right.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. The Senator Recto is recognized before we adopt.
Mr. President, are we in section 16?
Yes, section
Under
16,
incentives,
letter B,
okay?
under incentives.
And in letter B, plantation owners or bamboo plantation owners in public land shall be exempt from the payment of forest charges that may be imposed. Why are we exempting them, Mr. President? And who else are exempted?
What is the question, Mr. President? Why?
Yes.
Why are we exempting them?
Okay. How much is this?
And with regard to letter A, nursery and plantation owners shall be exempt from the payment of rent for the use of public land. How much public land are we talking about, Mr. President? And where are they located? And why are we exempting them?
The
Mr.
question,
President?
okay. So, the question now is, forest charges, they are currently exempted, Mr. President, ano to? Under department orders. Department administrative orders of the DNR. So current, just to be clear, Mr. President,
Okay.
regarding forest charges, bamboo planters or plantation owners are already exempted from payment of forest charges by virtue of DENR Department Administrative Orders. So we will continue the practice, the current practice.
And under what authority does the DNR have insofar as exempting anyone from forest charges?
From forest charges? Okay. Let's look at the basis. The DNR issued the department orders, Mr. President, so we will look at the
Yes, if they have the authority.
the cited
to begin with.
legal
Yes.
basis, Mr. President.
Who else are exempted from forest charges, Mr. President? Would we have a list? And more importantly, in paragraph A, we are exempting from rent all public lands for couldn't this be abused, Mr. President?
Saan anong basis? Okay. So we will first answer, sir, the rent.
Yes.
Saan yan? Saan yan? Bamboo or not? Or ano? Bamboo only?
Kasama, timber and non-timber.
We have the following department.
Not only on the real estate, but on the products.
Exempting rent of land,
There is no mortgage,
ano to?
only the
Community-based forest.
Yes, for example, Mr. President, DAO number 96-29, so that is October 10, 1996.
reading is
Community-based forest management strategy, section 2, incentives to POs, subparagraph 3, exemptions from paying rent for use of the sea.
Can you repeat that again? Can you repeat the first?
Community-based forest management strategy.
Okay, so community-based forest management strategy, okay. And then the key word is people's organizations,
POs, yes.
okay, are exempted.
And then, yes, that's for this particular order.
Yeah, but here in paragraph A, we're talking about nursery and plantation owners, huh? They're two different things.
There are other orders, Mr. President.
Yes.
For example,
Yes.
DAO number 97-04, which is March 4, 1997, Industrial Forest Management Program does not provide for payment of rent for the use of forest lands, but instead require a government share, which is negotiated between the DNR and the IFMA holder. So today, the default share is 5% of the gross income of the IFMA holder.
Goes to,
Go to the government.
okay.
And
And
then-
would that be the same here as well?
The plantation owners are holders of industrial forest management contracts with the DNR.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one, Mr. President. DAO number 99-53, so that's dated December 23, 1999. Does not provide for payment of rent for the use of forest lands, also, Mr. President.
Para magamit mo, sir, ang
Yes, Mr. President. So
And
you're
then-
saying that all of this may be in existing circulars
Yes, sir.
of the different departments?
There are two others, Mr. President.
Okay.
DAO number 88-97 and DAO number 96-24.
Now, these are also in the nature of similar to fiscal incentives, isn't it so?
Yes, in a way, because it involves
Correct.
the
Yes.
the release from the obligation to remit
Yes.
a certain amount. Mr.
Yes,
President.
correct. And aren't we soon enough, if not this week, next week, begin to discuss the issues of fiscal incentives? In fact, under the DOF proposal is to repeal 90 laws that provide for fiscal incentives. 90 laws, so that we can reduce corporate income taxes. So my point being this, one is I don't mind to have an industry for the bamboo, a development center, if it will be helpful, and I'm sure the intention of this bill is of the bill is to be helpful for the industry. I don't mind creating a bamboo industry development council, but having said that, I think we have too many councils, and in most cases, when we create councils for certain products, those products drop. When government has too much regulation. We were discussing it with the former Secretary also of Agriculture earlier, like rice, bagsak. Corn, bagsak. Mango, there's no council. Okay. Coconut, there's a council, bagsak.
When you say bagsak, you mean bagsak ang presyo o bagsak yung
The industry
industriya?
itself, the
Yung
industry
industriya.
itself. The industry itself. Banana, there's no council. Maayos ang tayo, Mr. President. Pineapple, there's no council. Maayos din yung tayo, Mr. President. But having said that, I'm willing to work with the gentleman. I'm okay with Section 6, Section 7, everything else except for the fiscal incentives, Mr. President. And there are other provisions on the fiscal incentives as well, which may invite a veto from the Office of the President through the Department of Finance. There are also provisions here on, anong page ba yung, shall be given priority to access credit assistance and guarantee schemes being granted by government-owned and controlled corporations. I think it is better to leave to the banks or to the guarantee corporations to determine who should be prioritized or not. Shall be covered by the Philippine crop insurance. Would this mean automatic? Are rice farmers automatically included in the Philippine crop insurance? Or corn farmers? So why should the bamboo farmers be automatically included?
Automatic ngayon, currently. Okay. They are currently covered, Mr. President.
They are currently
Currently
covered.
covered,
Bamboo plantation.
yes.
Maybe it's worded differently again. As in earlier, you mentioned that community-based organizations, POs, but nursery and plantation owners may be different, huh? I mean, there could be certain nuances.
Yes.
And many more, Mr. President. So, my only objection to this measure would be the incentives provided here from paragraph A to paragraph H. Every other section I can live with, Mr. President. Just for the record, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Senator Pangilinan is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of our minority leader, and yes, sir, if I may also raise some questions based on some of the observations raised earlier by Senator Recto. The concern, for example, is that although this has been deleted, but I guess the intent is there. On line 21 of page 8, that it will be provided to investors in plantation development and bamboo processing factories, which is to say, therefore, that bamboo processing factories will enjoy exemption from payment of rent of when they use public lands. There will be some incentives applicable to them, but maybe not all will be applicable to bamboo, which therefore perhaps might have to be clarified. The third plantation, for example, as I understand it, for example, a banana plantation in La Frutera is in Maguindanao, managed by La Frutera. It's 1,500 hectares of banana. The CEO there is former Secretary Senen Bacani. Does this therefore contemplate that if there is 1,500 hectares of a bamboo plantation, they will not be required to pay rent if their plantation is located in public land? And if, besides the 1,500 hectare bamboo plantation is a state-of-the-art
based on the incentives, the land, my understanding is, if it's 1,000 hectares, letter C says, bamboo plantations shall be accepted as among collaterals for loans. And so a public land can now be used as collateral for a loan. They are not paying rent, and now they can use 1,000 hectares for a loan. Maybe the borrower can only use as collateral what he or she or the corporation owns as a matter of owner, as an owner. So I don't think he will use the public land as collateral, but the plantation, the products, the produce of the land, Mr. President, can be used.
Mr. President, maybe to clarify,
It's chattel
this is
mortgage.
chattel mortgage, not real estate mortgage.
Yes.
Would the sponsor, for the record, agree?
Yes, the produce of the land, what he planted, what the borrower planted, he can use as collateral. That is what we want to give them as an incentive, Mr. President, but not the land which they do not own, Mr. President.
Yes, perhaps there has to be
Amendment.
an amendment to
The
precisely
wording.
spell that out.
And maybe, and who knows that maybe there's also a bamboo plantation, because the previous paragraphs mentioned public lands, but paragraph C can be applicable to a privately owned bamboo plantation.
Yes, okay.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, maybe, Mr. President, if the gentleman will agree, that the sponsor suggest language which will clearly spell out the security that can be accepted by the banks.
So, yes, Mr. President, so if we can finish all of the other amendments and then we just leave section 16 on the incentives, we can
Yes.
now agree on the language for section 16. And also with the participation of Senator Recto and Senator Pangilinan.
We might also look into, as we review, perhaps a sunset clause on the incentives. You wouldn't want to keep providing incentives to a company that is earning billions in exports of bamboo products. You'd like to get some income, revenue for government in that regard. So we'll look at the language, Mr. President, on section 16 and figure out how we can make a proposed amendment in that regard.
Yes, thank you. But if it involves public land, since there's an agreement involved there, so I think there's a natural time limit also to the contract involving the public land.
Senator Rivera, so seeking
Thank you, Mr. President, and with the indulgence of the colleagues on the floor, I would just like to make of record that I join with the Senate President pro tempore and Senator Pangilinan in placing on record my concerns, which the good sponsor will maybe recall that during the period of interpellation, I was starting to ask why the original exemption from payment of rent for the use of public lands, which was A, Section 16, incentives, had a time frame or a sunset clause. And I was starting to ask how come it was not the same case for the original two exemptions that followed. But the presiding officer, in fact, corrected me to say that the sunset clause on the original exemption had already been previously deleted. So I would just like to make of record, Mr. President, also my concern that this Section 16 on incentives be fairly formulated, both for the bamboo industry as well as for government. Especially, as the two colleagues who spoke before me said, letter A refers to exemption from payment of rent for the use of public lands. Letter B also refers to exemption from payment of forest charges in public lands. Letter C, I join the colleagues in waiting for an explicit formulation that this acceptance of bamboo plantations as among collaterals for loans in government-owned or controlled banks be not for those plantations also in public lands. Otherwise, parang hindi fair, no, na they are exempt from paying rent on public lands, but they may use this same unspecified, unless we specify that it's a chattel mortgage, as collateral for loans also in government-owned banks. Likewise, Mr. President, for letter D, it says that these plantation developers and processors shall be given priority to access credit assistance being granted by government-owned financial institutions. So again, just to balance the fairness that they are not using public lands for forever and yet having priority at the same time, and without rent, and then at the same time having priority to credit assistance from government-owned financial institutions. Second to the last, Mr. President, what the Senate President pro tempore already pointed out, letter F, that they shall be covered by the Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation. Is this the same social protection that is afforded to planters of other crops in our country? And last but not the least, Mr. President, in letter G, it says that for tenured bamboo plantation owners, upon the premature termination of the tenurial agreement with no fault of the holder, all capital improvements, etc., the holder shall be entitled to a fair compensation thereof. So I think it really needs to be spelled out that if they are on public lands, that though they may have access to these exemptions and the access to these agricultural inputs and protection, that it's balanced out fairly, given that they have had an advantage in the use of the public lands, that there must be a fair exchange also to the people through government. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Mr. President.
Senator Lacson is recognized.
Mr. President, I was intrigued by the observation or issue raised by the Senate President pro tem, because this will affect my vote, that all industries managed or run by councils are bagsak. I just want to be educated kung incidental lamang yung council sa pagbagsak or there are factors that directly contribute to the bagsak. It will affect my vote, Mr. President.
When
That's
the-
why I want to be clarified on the statement made by the Senate President pro tem. Kasi kung council yung reason why industries are failing, why do we have to pass this measure, Mr. President? So that's very important to me, at least personally, Mr. President. I was actually
President pro tem.
I was actually prodding
President,
the
yes,
sponsor
yes.
to ask for clarification, but he doesn't want to prolong his agony. He told me, ayoko na pagtagalin dito, so I'm asking the question, Mr. President.
Mr. President, there could be many factors.
Please elaborate.
One of them could be overregulation, because when government puts their hand on something, imbes na kumita, lalong nalulugi, Mr. President. So,
About corruption.
that is one of them, Mr. President. But I'm only stating a fact. Where government dips its hand into too much, apparently it appears that they lose money. And we made a few examples earlier, Mr. President.
So, Mr. President, the creation of a council is a big contributory factor in the failing industries run by councils. Effectively, that's what the Senate President pro tem is saying, Mr. President. Observation, which may be valid, Mr. President.
Mr. President? Yes, if I may try and respond to the point, clarification and question raised by Senator Lacson. Mr. President, this representation chaired the Philippine Coconut Authority for almost 2 years. Precisely, the Philippine Coconut Authority regulates the coconut industry. At some point, we had the power to issue, for over a decade, or more than 2 decades, or close to 2 decades, the power to issue export and imports of coconut products. Similar to the power of the NFA to decide who can import and export. And we know, as mentioned earlier by the Senate President, corruption becomes one major stumbling block to the development of the industry. The private sector would rather stay away than be regulated and overburdened by the regulations of the regulatory bodies, Philippine Coconut Authority, National Food Authority. when we were with the NFA, Mr. President, we had tried to bring in the participation of Jollibee, of San Miguel Corporation to participate in the importation of rice. But sadly, they would say there is a network around the rice industry that is already well entrenched, and if they try to come in, they will have a difficult time. And that well-entrenched network at that time precisely was certain traders in cahoots with corrupt NFA officials who would decide who can or cannot import the imported rice from Thailand or Vietnam. So yes, when there are councils involved, at least in these two industries, the tendency of the private sector is to stay away. At least the private sector that would like to have a level playing field, because precisely there are these challenges brought about by regulation. But and it's also true, there are no regulatory agencies for pineapple. There is no regulatory agency for banana. And these are our top exports.
Sugar, it's all lugi.
And sugar is all lugi. It's also regulated. So that these are, there are several factors, that is correct. And one precisely is government agencies dipping its fingers and over-regulation and corruption would be a number of reasons, Mr. President.
But Mr. President, let us be careful because sometimes some things happen in this world that we believe is caused by something, but sometimes they're just coincidental. So sa logic, merong P implies Q, pero sometimes P and Q happen at the same time, but P did not really cause Q. So let us be careful. Actually, this is a bill which is an appeal from those involved in propagating the bamboo industry, that they need this involvement by government through a specific body, concentrating on bamboo-related issues, bamboo industry needs, and some incentives. So, ako nga, ang aking ang inisip, a department for them, but that's too ambitious, so this is the best that we can do. A council for them, so that we can develop the industry, Mr. President.
Senator Villar is recognized.
I came from the lounge, and there are many senators there. They think that we can remove the council. Because if you will look at the bill, the DNR will take care of planting the bamboos. So if you want bamboos, you can approach the DNR to help you in the planting of bamboos. Now the DTI and the DOST will help you in processing bamboo. So if you want processing, you can approach DTI and DOST. And if you want to sell your bamboo, you approach DepEd, because DepEd is buying the bamboo provided there are school chairs. Sometimes kasi, yung pera ng gobyerno, nauubos sa overhead. We've been here in the Senate a long time, and 50% of the budget of the government is consumed by overhead. Like for example, in the private sector, usually 15% ang salaries and overhead, 15% ang selling expenses, 20% ang profit ng may-ari ng kumpanya. So that is 50%. In government, those 50%, because you don't sell, so there's no selling expenses, you don't make profit because it's for public service. So everything goes to the overhead and salaries, 50%. And if, let's assume 50%. Then we ask them, please give the 50% to the people kasi you have the 50%. And they won't even give the 50% to the people. And so, because there's so much overhead. you will notice that if it's um, uh, November and December, everybody's traveling. There are many, what do you call this, conferences, because they want to consume all their budgets, because if they are not able to finish their budget next year, the DBM will cut their budget kasi sasabihin, siguro kulang ang budget, sobra ang budget kaya hindi nyo nagasta, kaya pinipilit nilang ubusin yung budget through conferences and travels. And I remember one farmer told me in one of the conferences, sabi sa akin ng farmer, "Ma'am, binigyan ako ng aircon na dito sa conference na to, ginaw na ginaw po ako kasi hindi naman ako sanay sa aircon." Siguro tong farmer na to, mas gusto na lang, binigyan na lang siya ng inputs kaysa pinatira siya sa air-conditioned room sa isang hotel ng ating Department of Agriculture. Yun yung sinasabi ko. Kaya kami nag-uusap doon sa loob. Sabi nila, pwede nang tanggalin yung council na yun. At na makatipid ang gobyerno, ipamigay na lang sa tao yung gagastahin doon sa council na yon. Yun lang po. Marami pong salamat, Mr. President.
Parliamentary inquiry, is the gentle lady from Las Piñas proposing to delete all references to the council? Is that as an amendment?
Yes, because we think that there are too much overhead in
Right.
this government.
That's correct, sir. That is why, since we are in the period of amendments, it is proper, if that is the wish of the gentle lady from Las
No,
Piñas.
we were talking inside and they don't want to
So,
go out.
are we,
They told me
is
to
the
go
talk
to...
in the lounge
The-
being translated?
Transcribe.
That's
No.
my suggestion. That's our suggestion. I don't know if our minority floor leader will accept that.
No, it's not me. It's the sponsor.
The way I understand it, Senator Villar is voicing out the sentiment inside the lounge now. We're not listening to you. But if they want to amend it, they should come out here and no, wait. Levity aside. Allow
Sabi
me.
nila sa akin, wag ko na daw may mentionin ng Iloilo, magagalit si Senator Drilon. Natatakot na sila dito sa bamboo bill na to.
That's
Levity aside, all right. Following the logic of of Senator Recto, and then finding out that these councils or these industries being run by councils are not doing well. The question is being begged to be asked is, how is the bamboo industry today? Not good, Mr. President. There's no housing.
They're struggling, and one of the problems that the stakeholders or the people involved relate to us is that they cannot go to a one-stop shop, which will, a government agency which will guide them on what to do, how to propagate, and then they're asking for also additional incentives, Mr. President.
So it doesn't really follow na porque may council, bagsak. Ito bagsak talaga eh. Wala namang council.
Well, maybe.
Perhaps what we should look into are these councils. Anong klaseng mga council yun? Baka maganda itong council na formula ang gagawin ninyo. Ang gagawin natin. Yung mga dating council, yun ang burahin.
And additional information, Mr. President, the idea for the council came from the bill filed by Senator Villar.
Mr. President, I was about to point it out. That was in our bill, Senator Villar.
There is nothing wrong with you changing your mind after hearing the interpolation of this bill, which took a lifetime.
Mr. President, ang problema lang, Mr. President, with the permission of the gentleman, pag tinanggal yata yung council, may kamatayan
Kaya na talaga itong bill. Walang kamatayang bamboo.
We will be back to where we are right now, Mr.
May
President.
I ask for
That's-
one President so they can confirm.
Perhaps we can convene the session with the other members.
Yes, maybe we can deliberate.
Bibigyan naman natin, di ba? So pwede ba pag-usapan?
Yung walang kamatayang bamboo.
Sound check, sound check, sound check. Sound check. Hey. Sound check. Hey, sound check. Sound check, sound check. Hey, sound check.
Ready to resume, Mr. President?
Session resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of the Bamboo Development Act as we're still trying to resolve some problems between the author and the sponsor and the authors. I so move, Mr. President.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, move for additional reference to business. I believe it's only 2 pages, Mr. President.
The Secretary will proceed with the additional reference of business.
Additional reference of business, bills on first reading. Senate number 1343 entitled An Act Amending Sections 3, 4, and 6 of Republic Act number 9006, also known as the Fair Elections Act, to include static and LED billboards and other outdoor advertising media as lawful election propaganda, introduced by Senator Soto III.
Refer to the Committee on Electoral Reforms.
Senate number 1344, an act creating programs for incarcerated parents and their children, introduced by Senator Binay.
To the committees on Women and Justice and Finance.
Senate number 1345, an act establishing the Office of Flood Research and Policy to plan, coordinate, conduct, and share research on flooding, flood prevention, and other flood-related issues, introduced by Senator Binay.
Refer to the committees on Public Works, National Defense, and Finance.
Senate number 1346, an act granting benefits and privileges to former presidents and vice presidents of the Philippines or their surviving spouses, amending for this purpose Republic Act number 5059, repealing Republic Act number 2087, and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Binay.
Refer to the committees on Civil Service, Ways and Means, and Finance.
Senate number 1347, an act amending Presidential Decree number 252, otherwise known as the Philippine International Trading Corporation Law, as amended by Presidential Decree number 1071, otherwise known as revising the Charter of the Philippine International Trading Corporation, introduced by Senator Gordon.
Refer to the committees on Government Corporations and Finance.
Resolution. Senate Joint Resolution number 11, entitled Joint Resolution Extending the Franchise of ABS-CBN Corporation until 31 December 2022, introduced by Senator Drilon.
To the Committee on Rules. Senator Drilon is recognized.
May I move that Senate Joint Resolution number 11 be principally referred to the Committee on Public Services and secondarily to the Committee on Rules, if that is in order, Mr. President, because similar resolutions are now pending, and even in the Committee on Public Services, and this concerns the franchise of ABS-CBN. There will be a hearing scheduled on February 27, if I'm not mistaken. So
Mr. President, may I ask for 1 minute suspension to confer with you?
Session suspended.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Lalagyan ko lang ng
No more rules, just public services.
Mulatilya.
Mr. President,
The session is resumed.
Mr. President, we amend our previous motion so that the proposed Senate Joint Resolution number 11 be referred directly to the Committee on Public Services as the committee.
Yeah, we have no objection, Mr. President.
Well, although technically it should be referred first to the Committee on Rules because of the fact that this type of measure should emanate from the House of Representatives. But due to the fact that it has been a practice that as long as there is no committee report and the committee is merely hearing said intent of any resolution and
Yes. Actually, Mr. President,
quoting the then Senate President Neftali Gonzales, resolution lang naman yan eh.
and Mr. President, actually, we have precedents. We have precedents on this, and the precedents is during the budget deliberations, while the House, and taxes, while the House is hearing it in their chamber, we also have parallel hearings. We just don't come out with the committee report, Mr. President. It's allowed.
And
All right.
also in the revenue bills, the same thing. We hear it in the Senate, and sometimes when we report it out, we don't even refer to the House version. We just report out the Senate version. So we have interpreted the rules liberally, Mr. President.
All right,
Given the
what
fact
does the chairman of the Committee on Rules say?
We agree, Mr. President. There's
All
no
right.
objection on my part.
If there is
So
no
moved.
objection, it is so referred to the Committee on Public Services.
Before we adjourn, Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that we proceed with the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees and the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 1224 and House Bill number 5829. This is the GMRC Act, Mr. President.
Right, the Senate designates Senator Sherwin Gatchalian as chairperson and members Zubiri, Villanueva, Lacson, and Hontiveros.
Yeah, GMRC. This is a values.
You're the leader.
With that, Mr. President, all the other sponsors will be sponsoring the measures tomorrow, Mr. President. I move that we adjourn session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Tuesday, February 18, 2020. So,
Any objection? There being none, the session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, February 18, 2020.
thank you.